Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the panel entitled Shaping Policy for Sustainable Knowledge Economies, taking place at the 10th edition of the Knowledge Summit. As Arab nations strive to build sustainable knowledge economies, data-driven policy making has become a critical necessity. Despite increasing commitments to innovation and sustainability, significant data gaps across the region, particularly in tracking progress towards the sustainable development goals, still exist. Universities across the Arab world are beginning to rise this challenge, integrating evidence-based research into their institutional agendas. Yet, the gap between producing data and translating it into effective policy remains wide. The stakes are especially high in the era of artificial intelligence and green technologies. The Middle East AI and energy market alone was valued approximately 54 million USD in 2024, with projection to surpass 375 million USD in 2033, reflecting an annual growth of over 22%. This signals immense potential, but also highlights the urgent need for governance mechanisms capable of managing this rapid development. This transition demands a stronger policy alignment, access to robust and unbiased data sets. Without addressing issues of data quality, bias, and constraints, the promise of AI and green technology will remain unrealized. This panel brings together experts to explore how data ecosystems, research institutions, and policy frameworks can evolve to meet these pressing needs. Our aim today is to highlight pathways for evidence-based policymaking that truly support resilient, inclusive, and future-ready knowledge economies in the Arab world. Allow me to start by welcoming our esteemed panelists, starting by Professor Yusri Al-Jamal, Professor of Computer Engineering, Senior Advisor at the Arab Academy for Science and Technology, and Chairman of the Computer Scientific Committee Society in Alexandria. Professor Al-Jamal served as Egypt's Minister of Education from 2005 till 2010, and as a chairman of the Egypt-Japan University of Science and Technology from 2010 till 2014. He is also editor-in-chief of the Advances in Computing and Engineering journal and chairs the Information and Communication Committee at UNESCO, ALESCO, and ISESCO. You're welcome, Professor. Ms. Raghda Qawas, the Knowledge and Public Policy Specialist at the Business Practice and Policy Initiative at the Sulaiman Olayan School of Business at the American University of Beirut. With experience working with UNESCO, the British Council, and UNEP, Ms. Qawas has extensive experience in public policy, education, and sustainable development across the MENA region. Her current focus at AUB is translating academic research into actionable policy reforms to improve public and private sector decision-making. You're welcome. Dr. Mohammed Hadi Bshir, the strategic advisor of the director or the UNDP Regional Bureau of Arab States. He is an economist with over 23 years of expertise in economic modeling, strategic planning, sustainable development policy, and program development and management. Prior to joining the UNDP team, he served as the World Bank senior economist overseeing Libya and previously held the position of the Chief of Modeling and Forecasting Session at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, UNESCO. You're welcome. Dr. Natasha Ridge, the founding executive director of the Sheikh Saud bin Saqr Al-Qasimi Foundation for Policy Research. Dr. Ridge has led the foundation since 2009, advancing inclusive development and educational innovation in Ras Al Khaimah. Her leadership has steered research-driven policymaking and catalyzed initiatives such as the Irtiqa Rehabilitation Program and an education program for at-risk boys. She also expanded the cultural landscape by establishing the Ras Al Khaimah Art Festival and rejuvenating the AI Jazeerat Al Hamra Heritage Village. You're all welcomed and thank you for being here. Kindly, we will start by an opening question. Just like 1 minute response. Where do Arab countries currently stand in developing sustainable knowledge economies? Can you please start, Mr. Professor?
Actually, we need a lot of reforms in that area regarding first the data, the gaps in data that needs to be addressed. Also, universities are far from getting a role which is a proactive role for policymaking. So policymaking and universities are not well interconnected. And also there are some critical gap issues that needs to be addressed. We rely mostly on data that describe inputs. But actually, when it comes to outcomes, in terms of critical thinking, in terms of problem-solving skills, these data are not available. So we suffer from this aspect very much. Policymakers also are not specialized in data analytics. So when we present reports to them, we present these reports in a form that is not very much popular for policymakers. It's something like 50 pages reports, which is not adequate. So we need to rephrase that in terms of infographics, dashboards, and charts, which is most suitable for policymakers. So in brief, we need to bridge the gap between the scientists, scholars, and policymakers. And this is a lot of role that to be done by the top management and universities and data scientists.
Thank you. Sabah al khair. Good morning, everyone. In addition to what Dr. Yusri mentioned, I would like to add an important factor across the Arab region on the uneven distribution of resources and infrastructure. When we do this classification, the resources are uneven, one, and if I want to talk particularly about my experience in Lebanon, the barriers are very challenging when it comes to the economic collapse, the instability, yet we still have a very strong resources with our capacities as human resources, where they can still work on innovation, and I can talk on specific majors that they are vibrant and entrepreneurial culture, competitive talent, and engineering, data science, medicine, and creative industries. But unfortunately, and this was been repetitive across yesterday and today, on the brain drain of these resources, that they are not staying in the country, in Lebanon specifically. But I believe that we still have the potential in our human capital, and working on better governance and infrastructure investment and education reform, we can still pick up and to become more even in this distribution.
Thank you, Rabata. So again, I'll just where do Arab countries currently stand in developing such sustainable knowledge economies, in your opinion, Doctor?
I want just to, the role of data. What Doctora has said, that we are suffering a lot from brain drain. we conducted with the use of big data and so on, we have tried to follow the professional career of the best students in Tunisia that have been awarded during the mathematical Olympiad.
Yeah.
And now the mathematical Olympiad score is now in the knowledge index, because we consider that nowadays mathematics is the real oil. Now with the rise of AI and so on, we need good mathematicians. And it's all a question of mathematics. But just to come back to her example, we have followed them. Today, 100% of them are outside Tunisia. It's 90%, and I'm sure next year we will try to enlarge this assessment to all Arab countries. In the 80s, till the 80s, it was 50%. So today, you can have the best university in your country. You can form the best engineer, the best mathematicians. If you don't link the economic structure to to just get this the real, as I said, the real resources of the country. If you don't find a solution to the brain drain problem, we will be in a vicious cycle. So you'll form people. They will today in our region. I think this is the first time in our history we have 2 Nobel Prize in alive. But both of them are not in the region.
Yeah.
So I think you see, okay, we are proud, but I don't think that our economy is profiting from these brains.
Thank you. Please, Dr. Natasha.
Thank you so much, and thank you also to the Mohammed Rashid Knowledge Foundation and the UNDP. It's a great pleasure to be here. So yes, sorry, I'm the only non-Arab on the panel, so I apologize for my... thank you. So I thank my colleagues for speaking in English too. But I will speak from the GCC perspective, as it's where I've spent most of my working life, in fact, nearly all of it. Here, we don't have the brain drain issue, obviously, in the UAE. We've been very fortunate to be able to retain our talent. However, we still have a lot of struggle with the quality of education. So we've spent a lot of investment in improving, I guess, in building more universities, in creating more opportunities in higher education. But in terms of sustainable knowledge economies, we just don't actually have what we want to see in terms of research outputs. Citations are rising, but impact is still low. And faculty across the UAE and the GCC just do not have enough time to conduct research and to do strong projects. So I think the challenge in the GCC is more around how do we help academics, how do we help universities become places of learning for the future.
Thank you. Professor Yusri, I'll come back to you, please. Given your experience in both the government and the ICT, where do you see the most critical gaps or opportunities in using data and technology to inform education policy in the Arab world?
Well, thank you. Actually, we can point 3 types of gaps. We have foundational data gaps. Foundation data gaps, there are lack of standardized and interoperable data. Normally, data are confined in silos in universities, not only universities, in the ministries. And they are not shared. They are not even shared by interconnected systems. So that makes it difficult, actually, when you would like to track a student from the time he is in the primary school until the job market. The second issue here is we rely on inputs. When we talk about education, we talk about the number of classes, the number of the enrollment, the infrastructure, but we don't address the educational outcomes in terms of critical thinking and creativity and problem-solving skills. That what's needed for the knowledge society. And the other thing is that there is absence of real-time data. Data are normally collected in reports, and these are slow and annual. So you see that policymakers are basing their decisions on data that is 1 year back. 1 year now, it's a long time. The other thing is the issue regarding data is quality and relevance data. We focus on, for instance, for assessment on rote memorization. And this is not needed for the knowledge society. We need more than that, as I said, skills. And also the skills mismatch. We need to track the students from the time at schools until the job market, and there is a lack of data in that respect. The other thing is the capacity and the governance. Normally, when you go to policymakers, as I said, they are not specialists in looking at detailed data. And they are not actually, by nature, they are not data scientists. So we look at overall data, which at times you need to get to more details about that. You need to get data that is in areas that are, let us say, marginalized or rural areas, rather than taking averages. That's very important. And also they are under-resourced in data analysts. They need more data analysts, more data specialists in order to get the best outcome of data. And also, when the data governance is not there and privacy is not informed, they are reluctant to share this data. And that's really issues that prohibit actually making the best use of data for the benefit of the knowledge society. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Ms. Raghda, please, what are, in your opinion, and just like what you're doing at AUB, what are the most effective ways university like the American University of Beirut can enhance their impact on policy discourse, especially translating these complex findings that we're talking about into decision-making or decision-ready insights at least?
Actually, I'm going to talk about what we are doing basically at AUB and specifically OSB by establishing structured knowledge to policy pathways such as business practice and policy initiative, and the way how we translate research into practice and to make these policies actionable products. Academic findings should be formulated into policy briefs, evidence summaries, and strategic recommendations to be aligned with the national priorities and strategies. When we talk about policy reforms, we have to link it to the national priority or the national strategy. And this is very important. This is how we reach development through linking it to the national strategy and global strategies as well as SDGs. And having such index, like a global knowledge index report, this is very important, which help us to be on scale when we want to achieve these reforms. And by the way, I'm not talking only about the business school. We have knowledge to practice as well under the public health department. It's across the university that we are working on policy strengthening through these centers. How we do it, it's through policy dialogues, how we engage with the government. A number of our faculty at AUB they sit on steering committees with the ministerial level and parliamentary. It depends on their specialty, of course. And I would like to stress on policy dialogue and engagement. It's not only we look at it from a triangular approach, having the practitioners from the private sector and public sector on board, having policymakers looking at things from a legal perspective, and scholars. Scholars are and this is where academic institutions sit, where they have this theoretical and this is where we translate their theory into practice, and we make sure that it's sustainable for the country itself and for the region and globally. Finally, actually working on fostering collaboration with multi-stakeholders, just what I meant, how I mentioned, because when you engage such different stakeholders, it gives accountability and source of belonging. And I would like to also add a very important factor, engaging youth in such decisions throughout our students or throughout our outreach in Lebanon and the region. I would say having youth, they draw their priorities for the future in decision making and influencing decision makers what they have to work on. So
Thank you. I'll just go to Dr. Natasha and then come back, as I want to talk with you, Dr. Muhammad, about the AI integration. Yet, Dr. Natasha, many Arab research institutions struggle with this short-term funding cycles. In your opinion, how can we design sustainable financing and governance models that really ensure this continuity in producing and sharing the data that we might use at a certain point for writing some policies?
Thank you. Yes, I think this is a common challenge world over. How do we have financing for research and for data and for all this? So I think as a funder, the Qasmi Foundation, we have funding for faculty, we have funding for doctoral students, and we also have sort of seed grant funding as well. So we're very invested in funding research. And one of the key challenges that we also face is how do we help get access to data? So it's a sort of chicken and the egg. To do research, you need data to generate more data. So our emphasis is really on collecting primary data and then trying to share that as much as possible. One of the biggest challenges in the GCC is the lack of publicly available data. I think that's an advantage some of the other countries in the MENA region have. There's more UNDP data, there's more UN data in general, World Bank data, but here in the GCC, data is closely guarded, shall we say. So for me, it's very important that as a funder, that we help people get access to policymakers, help them get access to collecting data, so we facilitate research in schools, we work with the Ministry of Education, and I think that goes back to this importance of partnerships, that you need partnerships as a funder with the ministries, you need partnerships with policymakers, with stakeholders, in order to get access for researchers to have data. And then the other thing we do is we host events where people can come together to share their research findings and to share their data. So it's not in silos. And we recently held the Gulf Comparative Education Society event, 3 days. I think we had over 100 speakers and really fostering research on education in the GCC. Some of our colleagues are in the audience today who were there. So it was a wonderful time, but it's these gatherings and gatherings like today where people can actually know, oh, they're doing research on that and they're doing. So it's very, very important to convene. So yeah, I would just say the importance of convening, importance of collaborating, and then finally, I guess, that builds trust so that you can actually, as funders, feel like if I give money to this or this or this, it's going to yield something important.
Yeah, thank you. I actually agree. I can't agree more because from the researcher perspective as well. So Dr. Muhammad, back to you to ask you kindly, to what extent do you think that artificial intelligence is really expected to have this long-term economic and societal impact in case we're doing such research or such policies?
I think we are in a very crucial moment. The research are starting because we don't have enough observation, to be frank with you. It's all about modeling, forecasting. The IMF is saying that AI could affect 40% of our jobs, which means for us, more or less, when I say us, Arab region, 55 million positions that could be affected positively or negatively. It's a huge opportunity. Also, Goldman Sachs is speaking about $7 trillion for the coming 10 years. McKinsey is saying that it could generate a business of $17 trillion.
Yeah.
Which means for us, and if we do, as share of GDP, $200 billion that our Arab region could benefit if we do the good policies. And this is why we think that this knowledge summit is important. This is why we think that we need to go more for knowledge policy. Now that we know where we are, we need really to think where to go. Let me also tell you something. We are working on some, futuristic scenarios, but using algorithm, systematic algorithm. When we follow what are now the tendency in terms of investment in AI and so on, if you run a model, even through AI, it will show you that we can face three phases. And the third one is very, you can be afraid of it. So first, it's the booming phase. Now we are investing in technology and so on, and we see a rapid increase of productivity, even in salaries and so on. But at one moment, this investment will be, sorry if I will be a little bit long, but this investment will be too cheap that you will have a tendency to replace work by automatization. The third phase, if there will be no job, because the cost will be lower, this is scenario, lower than what we call the reservation wage. So it's the wage when you not accept a job. So it will be so cheap to develop an AI service that can replace any one of us, and of us, I'm saying really of us.
Yeah.
Which means, perhaps we'll come to the third question, that without regulation, without having a strategy, if we let the system run alone, we can face a tremendous change, not in the economy, but in our society.
Yeah.
So also,
Thank you. Yeah, actually, AI might replace some of the to a certain extent. So this is where we have to work on ourselves to develop all the skills related to the development and the artificial intelligence. Dr. Professor Yusri, as a university professor, how can universities in the Arab world become more proactive in shaping national policy beyond producing the research itself by actively interpreting the data for the decision makers?
Thank you. That's a very important question, actually. And it gives you opportunity to place a call to my colleagues at academia and at universities. We need to reposition our universities as indispensable, neutral, and proactive partners. Remember that policymaking affects us all, so we can't just keep a distance. We have to be more proactive, and that needs lots of actions. We need to establish dedicated, high-profile interfacing units, create policy labs, knowledge mobilization. Let us scan our research, translate it into policy action oriented. Let us scan this and respond to needs from policymakers. We need to master the policy of communication and timing. Decision makers need something very concrete. So when we are confronted with a problem, let us not produce a 5 pages report, but just give it in a form that's suitable for decision makers. What is the problem scale? That's important. what are the options, and what's the cost, what is the impact, and what are the actions. This is exactly what he needs. And instead, he doesn't have time to read 50 pages report, but this is exactly what he needs. We need also to develop policy alerts. When you see in the market, for instance, that there's a shortage of AI specialists, we have to give an alert to policymakers, something that needs to be done. The same thing for instance, cybersecurity specialists and so on. And also, we need to use powerful data representation in terms of charts, infographics, and the dashboards. That's more suitable for decision makers. We have to open venues between policymakers and the universities in terms of having some faculty members, they spend some time at the ministries. We've done that successfully with industry. Why don't we do it with policymakers? That's important. And establishing some advising councils. Let us have, our postdocs, some specialists, and data analysts, and people from the civil society. Let's have this community to help the policy making. Let us also host some dialogues, not just formal conference, but workshops that are dedicated to policy making. We focus on the future, actually. So don't try always to investigate what happened to the past. That's not very helpful. But let us establish the annual State of the Future, for instance, report. That is important. And launch some pilots. And then we have the students. Why don't we cultivate policy-oriented studies? Our postgraduate students, why don't they have a course on policy analysis within this, no matter what they are studying? But that's important in postgraduates, and this we can do it, and we can introduce that to have those calibers that help policy makers, and also incentives. For instance, in graduation ceremonies, let us invite some successful policymakers. Sometimes we do that. They address the students, but we don't reward them. But believe me, policymakers at all levels, they need to be recognized, especially by universities. So invite them to the graduation ceremony and actually acknowledge their good work in terms of a certificate or a trophy or a plaque, something that he will be happy, and that will foster very much the communication venues between universities and policymaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Qawas, what do you see as the biggest barrier to adopting data-driven policymaking in the Arab region, especially when it comes to translating the academic research into practice?
This is a very important question. If I want to talk about my experience as a researcher, not in Lebanon, specifically in the region, the Arab region, one of the main challenges is access to data, especially when it comes, when you work with the public sector. This is one of the main challenges that can't help you maneuver your analysis and data collection for so many reasons. At some point, it's related to accessibility, accountability, the ethics. At some point, it's based on political decisions. So, and the privacy of, and now that we're living in an open world, smartphones, AI, so data is everywhere. But here, what is the ethics behind using this data? And how can we make it, to keep it human? Because at the end, these decisions, when it comes to policymakers, it has to be relevant to the needs of the citizens and to keep them engaged. That's why, as Dr. Yusri mentioned, and it's music to my ears, these recommendations, this is what we basically are doing at the center, to engage the citizens in decision making and to keep up these policy dialogues. This is how we collect our data. We do have these challenges to access, but through having focus group meetings, collecting data from different fields and sectors, and to be multi-sectorial across services when it comes to education, to health, public services, it can gives you a hint. And the other approach that we use is through contextual analysis for the needs, through qualitative and quantitative. I believe qualitative research is very important to understand the human behavior, and this is where change happens. And in a way or another, you can translate it into quantitative in order to understand the challenges and how to develop programs that feed in the needs of the citizens. Because as policymakers, the main beneficiary is the citizen. And these needs has to come from the citizens. If this data, if they don't have the accessibility and the communication, this is not enough, and they will not achieve their goals at the national level. So continuous collaboration, having dialogues, because the challenge is there, as I mentioned earlier, with the accessibility, accountability, and the ethics behind it. So we can still find different ways to achieve these changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll also go to Dr. Natasha as we'll talk about AI with Dr. Bashir. So, Dr. Natasha, the Al-Qasimi Foundation has long worked at the interface between research and policy in the United Arab Emirates. What are the most effective mechanisms in your journey you've seen for turning the data that you have and the research into the actionable policies at the local level? Please.
Thank you so much. I think first of all, it comes to what kind of research you're doing. So in my perspective, it needs to be very relevant. Yeah. A lot of people come and they decide they have a research topic that's interesting to them, and that might be the case, but in terms of turning that research into policy, does it align with policymakers' priorities? Number one. And also, does it align with the community's priorities? So for me, it's that balance between the two. One example I can give is we were asked by one of our senior leadership to do a profile on why were there so many stray cats in Ras Al Khaimah. Okay, this seemed very random. It's not really my area of expertise. So we wrote a study. We went around. We talked to the community. And it was a big concern. So we published a report on dealing with animal welfare issues with stray animals. That report, because again, and that goes back to what Dr. Yusri said and to Ragda as well, that was then broken down into smaller digestible chunks because policymakers don't want to read a 50-page report on trap neuter release in this case. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, then that was then picked up by the Ministry of Climate Change, formerly the Ministry of Agriculture, so which is why. And then that went into the federal level on a policy on animal welfare. So I think it's when you find these places that there are concerns both at the top level and concerns at the bottom level, people's daily life, but then taking that research and making it in digestible bits for the community. And I think, going back to what Dr. Yusri says, the formatting and the presentation of research, nobody wants to read a 50-page. I worked when I was very young as an intern in Parliament House in Australia for ministers. They would read one page to make a whole policy. Exactly. So I think that's the digestible bit. And I think the final thing is really just continuity, and Ragda touched on that too, that you have to build a reputation. People have to trust you. So you have to keep producing research that is relevant, research that is meaningful, research that is digestible, written in plain English, and just keep at it. Sometimes it might get traction, sometimes it might not, but if you establish yourself as a reliable partner, then people will come to you, or they will come to the scholars you bring, but there will be a level of trust again. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Dr. Muhammad, we're back to talking into AI specifically. What are the anticipated global and regional implication of the rapid rise of the artificial intelligence, in your opinion?
As I have explained, we are on a turning point, and everything gonna depend on our strategy. So we think really that the first step is to agree on a clear strategy that will allow us to move and to at least to follow what is happening. Two, and the question of data here is crucial. As you know, data is the real material of artificial intelligence. And when you speak about data availability or you speak about data accessibility, we cannot move with that. We need to have available data to have good AI models that is available, that is trustable, and that is available. So put it in the accessible and put it to the public domain. Now, I think we should not neglect also the question of rule of law. And we need to adapt our government to this new situation. Algorithm transparency is very important. So we need, I don't know if we need a new type of ruler engineer. I don't think that we have this type of, but we need some people that understand algorithms, but understand also the rule, because, and we don't have now for the moment, I think.
You mean rule?
Because is this algorithm compliant with privacy? And we see now there is a clear problem with, we don't know what is happening. If this algorithm is cleared or not. My last point, perhaps because I think we need also to redesign our social policies. It's clear that from now we need to think again about the new policies, UBIs, universal benefit, new way of redistributions, because we are going to, and we are already, but more and more will go to a less distributed society and so on. Yeah. So now to link to what we need now at this stage, I think we need to have good models that forecast what's going to happen, and here we in collaboration with between UNDP and the Maktoum Foundation, we are developing new economic quantitative models that will try to help our member countries to better assess the implication of what's going to happen, to better also redesign, because we think that we need to really design and redesign every time with the speed of what is happening, to design knowledge policy, but also to link this to well-being and to the societal equilibrium that's gonna be generated with sorry to bring this gloomy picture, but it's good that we anticipate what I don't know. There is in French they say gouverner c'est prévoir. Ruling is anticipation also. So we need to anticipate. We need to have good strategy to follow what could happen in the coming years.
Yeah, and I think what we're doing and similar researches would help in this. Professor Yusri, from your experience, what are the most urgent data gaps or biases that need to be addressing to enable evidence-based policy makings in the Arab world, the most in your opinion, the most urgent? And how can policymakers navigate the political and the institutional constraints in this, also from your background as the minister, please?
Well, thank you. We can point out four critical data gaps. Learning versus schooling in education. That's important. We concentrate on data related to schooling, but we undermine the data that is related to learning. And that is what matters for the knowledge societies. As I said, the outcome of schooling in terms of the skills acquired and the problem-solving skills and building creativity and the critical thinking, etc. The other thing is the graduate outcome, actually, black box, that we need this data that covers the data related to our graduates, the job market, what time of payment they are receiving, what is their employer's satisfaction. That needs to give us feedback to what's happening in the educational process. The inequality and informality blind box, that we need to give averages, which is not very representative. We have to focus on marginalized areas and rural areas, refugees, areas that really become blind when we stick to averages. And the real-time pulse, that we need to have data that is more real-time to respond to variables that can happen during the time of annual reports. The other thing, we have pervasive data bias. We have administrative bias because, administrators, they tend to have this data that make them look good. So they emphasize on enrollment data. But what about dropouts? They need to just mask this part. And that's not good for the welfare of the society. And also the elite capture, that statistics comes from urban surveys mostly. And they don't go to rural areas, they don't go to remote areas. And so we don't have much insights on these societies. And there are some better measurement bias that, for instance, GDPs and averages don't give a good picture of that. How to bridge that? Actually, we need to go to the pilot project strategy. We don't try to fix everything at the same time. Let us pilot, let us launch a very well-defined project and emphasize the success stories. And then you try to disseminate the good practices in this case. We need to build coalitions with civil societies. We need to build coalitions with those that are reform-minded personalities. Build some coalitions and frame the impact. We need to have independent, actually, strategies strengthened with civil societies, and actually we form criticism, patriotism. Sometimes when you criticize decision making, and that seems that they look as anti-patriotic. We have to change that. That no, when you pinpoint some sort of problem, that is for the good of the whole society, because that means you are actually pointing a weak point that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, when we just rely on good news, that's not good. So we have to change the mindset of this, that criticism is not against patriotism. No, otherwise It's actually a very patriotic action. So these concepts need to be changed actually to make misuse of data.
Thank you. Kindly bear with us. We're just extending for 10 minutes as we started late 10 minutes. So this is the last question before we open the floor for your questions and interventions if you have. Raghda, how do you manage the challenges around data quality and sensitivity in your research policy work? And what strategies help you or help ensure that the research remains credible and impactful while dealing with it?
Actually, I mentioned a few of these challenges, but I'm gonna put it down in points. First, to have accurate validation and triangulation of to ensure that data is cross-checked across multiple sources and methodologies, which reduces errors actually. And when you engage different stakeholders, it limits from errors. Ethical handling and confidentiality, especially if we're working at the public sector level, to understand their priorities and how to link it to our research. We are repeating this to keep it relevant. If I want to talk specifically, giving an example from Lebanon, how many programs we get to be implemented, most of them, not most of them, would be irrelevant
To the needs.
to the needs of the context. And this is what makes it more challenging. So understanding the context, understanding the needs of the people, this is how majorly limits from not achieving your goals. Clear communication for decision makers. Dr. Yusri mentioned something. It's very important, this engagement and to listen. And even if we as researchers or citizens go and having dialogue with policymakers and asking them that this is irrelevant or relevant, keep the communication open through policy dialogues, through roundtables, through through steering committees. So basically, I'm going to give an example. I sit as an advisor on the steering committee for the Ministry of Human Development and وزارة التنمية الإدارية in Lebanon, governance. And the assessment that we are working on, it's coming from us, from different sectors across the country. It's not only coming from a top-bottom approach, it's a bottom-up approach, having everyone engaged from different backgrounds, civil society, private sector, public sector, scholars, students. We have a big number of students with us who sit on the table and share their needs. This is how, when you make the research more based on qualitative research, it limits than just because of the challenge of accessibility to the right data, especially from the public sector. And at some point, and unfortunately, due to the challenges that we've been having in Lebanon for the past 5 years, 6 years now, the data is not being updated. We have the challenges of the refugees across the country, which also makes it more challenging to understand the foundation. So taking into consideration all these challenges and to work across it is important. And yeah, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
I ran out.
Thank you. Dr. Natasha, please, how can locally generated data and knowledge be better integrated into national policy debates that are often dominated by the international indicators and rankings?
Thank you. I'll go quick because I know
Please.
we're out of time. But yes, and thanks. If the audience wants to know more, happy to talk. My big takeaway is, yes, we need Indigenous knowledge. We need local knowledge in our research, especially in the GCC where we rely heavily on management consultants, and the data that they collect, the reports that they write are often not publicly available. So it's a massive, massive challenge here in the GCC in particular. We need to give opportunity to young researchers to publish. We have a journal through the Al-Qasimi Foundation, the Gulf Education Social Policy Review. If you're interested in publishing, come and see me. You need to get research out there to give young academics a place to publish, and it's also bilingual in English and Arabic. Must have bilingual research available in the region. This is a huge challenge as well. So yes, I think we need, and the other thing is funding for longitudinal studies that is then publicly available. We do not in the GCC have enough longitudinal studies, hardly any, especially on education and health, critical social sectors. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to talk to me, come and see me.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it, Dr. Natasha. Please, Dr. Muhammad, what roles should governments play in shaping and managing the development and the deployment of AI in specific? And kindly, very fast.
No problem. Most of this action I have been presented them
Previously.
previously. So strategy, governance, and do not forget the social implication of this raise, taxation, transfers, and so on. And the last point, the regional and international cooperation to manage all this new revolution. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, it was a pleasure just like discussing. And yes, despite all the challenges that we have, but we are really looking forward to just like these conferences or these summits in order to advance what we're having. At least we're starting some steps that would advance the regional status or the status of what we're having nowadays. Kindly, I would like to open the floor for any intervention, any question. All are welcome. Okay, please, can someone? Thank you. تفضل. Yes, تفضل.
يعطيكم العافية. Thank you so much for such an inspiring, honestly, panel. I do have two questions, and I'm going to make sure that they are very quick. So the first question is actually open to anyone who would like to address it. As someone who's youth and interested in sustainability, I know the urgency of the sustainable policies. However, when someone is not aware, let's say from my age or younger, a youth, about sustainability and the importance of it, and listening that we are still lacking of data, lacking of infrastructure, we need to bridge the gap, what would a message that you can share to those young people to send some hope? My second question is go to Mr. Mohammed. When it comes to AI, and thank you so much for bringing it because we cannot not address AI nowadays. When we are creating a sustainable policy, what is the key element that we need to ensure that they to have sustainable policy, especially for knowledge economy, that the policy must have it? A lot of policies address the ethical way, but in your point of view, what is the most important, the urgent thing that we need to address? And thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Let's take all the questions and then we would reply at one time so that we also have some time spared. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this panel. It's great to see some familiar faces. I think the panelists fit really well together. This is just more just a general reflection, especially to former Minister Yusri's comments, and I appreciate what you're saying about the challenges of moving from outputs to outcomes, also being more inclusive in terms of policy analysis and making that something that learners in school can understand. And I think a lot of us, when we're studying, we think of policy analysts as someone that needs to be a minimum 50 years old, very senior, have worked with the UN and whatnot. But I just want to share an example from my background is as a professor of participation and social impact. I also worked on an Egyptian social emotional learning program. It's called 1001 Nights. And I also work in education strategy modeling. So The course I was teaching was in 2020. It was on participation and social impact and who participates, why they participate, and what are the barriers. And a lot of my students were from countries that were in active conflict and active war. And the first day of class, we did a mapping exercise, and I just asked everyone, tell me where are all the wellness facilities on campus. And most students didn't know where they were, and a few did know where they were and like where the counselors were and whatnot. And as the year progressed, this was 2020, a lot of students were going through different things due to COVID, due to war and whatnot. And we realized two things. One, that there was no wellness policy for students, especially those that were going through war. And two, that the education curriculum had to be approved by the Ministry of Education, and there was no room for flexibility. So what I did, I didn't really formally report this, but I asked the students to explain how they want to be graded on their assignments, and also what they want the rubric of the class to be. And basically, I'll just keep it short. We created a wellness policy based on students' learning, and we also reshaped the curriculum, and they presented the course outline to the dean next year, and they just approved it. So students are policy analysts, basically.
Thank you. I think this is a youth activism that just like led to certain policy due to the because we're mindful of the time. Kindly, we'll answer the questions and we'll conclude. The first question is, where do you as youth, what is the takeaway as a youth to take with you after this panel, since we just like made it a bit gloomy? It's not like we just like so who would like to give the advice, because Dr. Muhammad replying on the AI question as well. I can just like tell you a short, since I deal with youth at my university. So yes, it is gloomy, yet being mindful of what's going around and having the clear picture of moving forward into having these policy reforms or moving this. Actually, the youth are the people who encouraged us to take this step forward. This awareness of the youth and what's going on is what made us really move forward. So I think it is not as we want it to be, yet as we're talking about it, we're doing our research about it, we're having these steps. This is what makes us depend on you to apply what we really are putting and to modify if we had done any mistake. Any of the panelists would like to add? Okay, Dr. Muhammad, the AI question, please, before we conclude.
No, I don't want to make it gloomy. My only point is that we should be ready. When I say we, it's your world at the end of the day. You will manage it, by the way. Your generation will manage, and you started already with Gen Z. What you are doing, guys, is just fantastic. And I have Gen Z in my home, so I know what I'm speaking about. But I think that we should not neglect the social dimension and the social implication. We are moving to a new society. So now AI is even affecting the vote. Look what is happening in Europe now. And it will affect our life. So we need to, from now, because now everyone is happy, growth is going, productivity is picking up. We will invest in data centers, we'll invest on skills and so on. But at one point, we should also look to there will be a new society. So how we will be affected? I think antitrust should work also. We should not have 2-3 companies ruling all the data in the world. So this is my only concept. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for attending. It was great. Thank you, our panelists, for giving us your time. And all of us, of course, we're ready to just like communicate with you or talk with you or have a conversation on any point you would like to know more about. Thank you again, and hopefully to the best. Please, can we have a group photo?